Good morning from Oban, Scotland.
Good morning.
This is day 4 of our 4-day tour around the west coast of Scotland.
Flying by.
You can hear the waves behind us, and that's what I heard all last night because our hotel is right here on the water. We've just had a lovely breakfast, and Oban has this really neat Coliseum that we want to point out. It's called McCaig's Tower, and it was built back in 1897 by a local banker, a businessman by the name of McCaig. And his idea was to create work for local stonemasons and also to be this kind of lasting monument to the McCaig family, which it clearly is. And
mission accomplished.
Not the first thing I expect to see when you pull into a coastal Scottish town is a Coliseum perched on the cliff. But it's really, really neat to see.
Very striking.
So we're up, the sun is up, we're ready for another day. We've driven a wee ways from Oban, and we are walking towards Castle Stalker. Castle Stalker, the name Stalker comes from the Gaelic, means hunter or falconer. And this is extra exciting because this castle has featured in some pop culture, mainly in Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail.
One of the greatest films of all time.
If you're familiar with Monty Python, then I think you will definitely recognize Castle Stalker. It's also been in Outlander and Sense8, and it sits in the middle of Lalique, so it's really gonna be picturesque, and I cannot wait to see it in person.
Me too.
Oh, there she is, Castle Stalker.
She's beautiful.
Wow, the way it's situated in the loch, surrounded by the water. And the original building on this site, it would have looked much different. It goes back to the early 1300s. I think it was more of a small fort. And then this castle, as we see it today, probably dates back to around the 1440s. Huh. And there's a great story that goes back to 1620 about the castle changing hands in a very regrettable way, where the man who owned the castle at the time was playing a game of cards, and he decided to bet the castle, bet the farm, for a boat. Thought that's a nice boat. I'd like to have that. There may have been some ale involved, I would think.
I don't like where this is going.
So he bet the castle for the boat. He lost. He lost the card game, he lost the castle, and at that point, Castle Stalker changed hands and belonged to a different clan. That was not a good morning after.
Lesson learned.
For that man. We've been continuing our road trip here, and along the way we passed a kind of, I don't know what to call it, a ridge up in the mountains, and that is where they filmed Hagrid's hut in Harry Potter, and we love those movies.
Yeah.
So that was something I was really surprised to see. I didn't know that was there.
I had no idea that was shot here.
Apparently the producers left the set to be a tourist attraction, but it lasted for only 2 weeks because they were inundated with people who wanted to look, and there were people breaking out in fights. The septic system was overloaded. Oh, no. So they had them come and take it away. So there's nothing there, but you can still see where it was. Now, we're at the visitor center in Glencoe, and
I'm gonna step away and reveal what's behind us. Da, 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 da.
This is our new friend, Highland cow, who has been feasting away on this hay here.
He must be full now because he's left it behind.
They're so soft and hairy, just the cutest. As you can see, Glencoe is an absolutely beautiful place, but unfortunately, it's known for a very infamous massacre that happened here in 1692. And this turf and Creel house gives us an example of what the dwellings in this area would have looked like at that time, and get a much better look at what the construction is like inside. There's a fire burning, which would have been going all the time to keep people warm here in the harsh climate of the Highlands of Scotland.
Freezing cold winter.
There's a long history to explain the massacre, but basically in 1692, some soldiers were ordered by King William of Orange to come up and murder the MacDonald clan because they had been late signing an oath of allegiance, of loyalty to him. And so he told Clan Campbell, take your men, your soldiers, I'm gonna send you on some government work and I'll await further orders. I'll tell you what you're doing soon, just stand by. So Clan Campbell came up with their men, didn't know what they were going to be doing, but they were received very warmly by the MacDonald clan. They hosted them in their homes, they dined with them, they gave them a place to sleep for the night, they gave them food, water, everything that they needed, and they were really welcoming and great hosts. Then Clan Campbell got their orders. The orders were murder them all. Women, men, children, burn everything, destroy it all, leave no person alive. And this for the people who had just been their hosts. So they did. They massacred them all. And this event has been inspiration for everyone from Sir Walter Scott to more recently George R.R. Martin in Game of Thrones. This was one of the influences for the infamous Red Wedding. Anyone who was not immediately murdered by the Campbell clan on the orders of King William of Orange, when they saw what was happening in shock, wearing their night clothes, they basically ran for the hills, ran for their lives. The snow would have been waist deep at that time, and they had really no chance of surviving in that weather, just as they were having to leave everything behind that they could have used to possibly survive. So basically anyone who wasn't murdered immediately died from the elements trying to run into the hills here in Glencoe. So that's the Glencoe Massacre from 1692, which happened just here where we are now. It's a shocking and tragic story, and easy to understand why it's a story that we still remember today.
One thing I keep seeing signs of is "Haste ye back," which I just absolutely love.
Yeah, when you're leaving a place or a town, often it says, "Haste ye back."
Yeah, it's so charming.
We will, thank you. We've arrived at the oldest distillery in Scotland. We're at the Glenturret, and we're here to do a tour and learn all about making whiskey.
And fun fact, this is in the town of Creel, which is the hometown of
Ewan McGregor. One of our favorites. We said at the same time. Clearly it's true. I'd say the number one drink associated with Scotland has got to be whiskey, no E, by the way. That's how you know that it's made here in Scotland. Whiskey with no E. It's the number one drink, probably closely followed by Iron Brew. But we're here at Glenturret, which is the oldest working distillery in all of Scotland. And very recently, they produced the number one whiskey in the entire world at a festival out of, I think, over 4,000 other entries. One of the owners is also a committed environmentalist, and so Glenturret has pledged to be carbon neutral by the year 2040, and thanks to a huge investment on his part, they're actually 10 years ahead of schedule, which is really exciting. And part of what helps with that is in terms of transporting the barley, which is of course a main ingredient in making whiskey. The barley is made within about 20 miles of this distillery, so getting it here is a lot easier. There's also now a Michelin star restaurant here on site, and they recently got their second Michelin star. There's actually only 2 restaurants in Scotland that have 2 Michelin stars, and one of them is here at Glenturret. We took a tour where our guide showed us the whole process from growing the barley in the farms nearby right through to doing a tasting at the end. And I thought one of the most interesting things on the tour was actually seeing the malt mill. It's somewhere between 100 and 120 years old. It's the oldest one in Scotland. There's only a handful of these kinds of malt mills in the world. They were made by a company called Porteous, who are actually no longer making them because nobody ever needed a new one because they never stopped working. amazing. They never needed a replacement, and there's only a handful in the world, and we know that because the same man who's from Wales services all of them. He's the only person in the world who just travels constantly servicing these malt mills around the world. And if they need a new part, he's the one who builds them. It's just fascinating. What a talented person. We also learn all about the water, which is of course another important ingredient when it comes to making whiskey. And the water here comes from Loch Turret, and that's actually where the name Glenturret comes from. So here in Scotland, Glen means valley, and the loch is the lake. So Glenturret means the water coming from the valley. The best smelling room, in my opinion, that we visited on the tour is called the Tun Room, and that's where the fermentation process takes place. And they have these massive wooden barrels that are round, that have covers on them, and they go far down, much deeper than the floor. You can actually take a peek down and see how deep they go. And we got to take a smell. You have to be careful you don't inhale too much because there are gases that can make you feel a little bit loopy, which is why they eventually decided to put lids on top for health and safety reasons. And so we saw one that was further along in its process and it wasn't bubbling quite so much. It had sort of a smooth, buttery texture. And then he flipped the lid up on another one that was much earlier on in its fermentation process, and it was just bubbling away. Lots of action in that washback. After that, you walk into a room where the actual distilling happens in a big still, I think it's called. And each distillery has its own still with a unique shape, I believe. And this one, when you walk in, I had a feeling of being, guided by Willy Wonka or something because of its just incredible shape. And it's made of copper, and all of this along the way adds to the different unique flavors that come with the whiskey. Cats also have a long history here at Glenturret. One in particular named Towser. He was 24 years old and actually holds the Guinness World Record for catching the most mice. And of course the first question is, well, how do you know how many mice he ate if he was eating the mice? Apparently he was not fond of the tails. So in the morning they would come in and Towser would have left a bunch of mouse tails on the floor. So the guys would count them up, keep a tally, and the more tails that Towser had brought in overnight, the more water with a little bit of whiskey he would put in. This is the story that he really loved whiskey. And Towser caught 28,899 mice in her lifetime. Someone from Guinness came and counted the tails over the course of a month, and then they multiplied that by the number of years that Towser had been alive. That's how they arrived at that number that's now forever on that plaque outside the distillery. And after the tour, after you've been guided through the process of making the whiskey, you get to try some at the end. And we tried one called Triple Wood, and he teaches you how to, look at the color, which can tell you what kind of barrel it was aged in, as well as swirling it, looking at the legs, as they're called, the lines that kind of come down the sides of the glass. And then when you take a sip, to just let it sort of sit in your mouth and then try to just discern all of the flavors in the whiskey. It's really interesting. And even if you are not a whiskey lover, I don't know anything about whiskey. I think I've only ever had whiskey a couple of times when I've been at a pub in Scotland probably. But it's amazing to try after you have this deep appreciation and learning about not only how it's culturally significant in Scotland, but also the history of this distillery, and being here at Glenturret, of course, knowing it's the oldest working distillery in Scotland. That's got to enhance the taste as well, I think. It smells amazing, I have to say, so I'm gonna try it. Oh, wow. It's strong.
Yeah.
He said you almost want to chew it and just let all the flavors around.
Swish it around.
Wow-wee. Mark might have a new favorite whiskey.
I think I do actually. It goes down nicely.
Whiskey, in order to be considered whiskey, has to have been aged for 3 years. If it's less than 3 years, you can't call it whiskey. If it's 3 years and 1 day, we have a whiskey. So that's the rule. And you can age them far longer than that. And we heard about a whiskey that was aged for more than 50 years. And of course, as you may guess, that impacts the price. And they actually have one here that sells for £50,000 per bottle. And just to try a glass is somewhere north of, I think, £2,500. If you'd like to have a taste and try before you buy. Which may not be necessary if you're buying a 50,000 pound bottle of whiskey, but if you'd like to, you can. I loved that.
I loved it too.
Our guide was so knowledgeable and I feel like I learned so much.
I learned a ton.
Yeah.
And I really can't believe everything that goes into it. It's way more complex than I thought, actually.
Yeah, every time I see a bottle of whiskey, Scotch whiskey, I am definitely going to appreciate it a whole lot more.
And every sip that we have.
How many sips are you planning to have?
Well, maybe a couple more Glenturrets.
Depends if it's Glenturret. Is that your new favorite?
That's my new favorite. Only one of those 50,000 pound bottles though.
Yeah, your standards have
I
really
have very high standards.
highly recommend. We're back in Edinburgh, back where this whole tour started 4 days ago, which feels like a lifetime ago because we've seen so much, and also
1 second ago.
it also went way too fast. It's been another amazing day, from waking up to that incredible view from our hotel room this morning in Oban.
We woke up in Oban today? Wow, that's unbelievable.
As I was saying it, I was like, yeah, it was this morning.
For real?
That was this morning. Then we saw Castle Stalker and Glencoe, and then of course the distillery. We've seen so much over the past 4 days. Ferry hopping, puffin watching, and just having an amazing time. This was a Highland Explorer tour, so we will link the name of the tour and all the other information down below so you can find more there. We've also made 3 other videos, so if you haven't seen them yet, go back and watch day 1, 2, and 3 because we've had some amazing adventures. And I just feel so grateful that we got to see so many parts of Scotland's west coast, places that I had only ever dreamed of going.
Same here.
So it's been an absolutely spectacular 4 days, and honestly just a dream come true to spend this time in Scotland. Getting to see so much of the west coast, the wildlife, the history, the culture is amazing. There's just no words really.
No.
So we hope that you guys have enjoyed coming along. We also make lots of other videos around the world, so if you are a travel lover like we are, then you can check out our channel to find all of that. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We really appreciate your support. And we also post lots more content over on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, so you can go follow us there for lots more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.
And as they say in Scotland, haste ye back. Bye.